Hey guys, welcome to the next video dealing with the basics of Dreamweaver. Now, I've been working on this video for the last couple days, and I think I might make it into a two-video set. In fact, I'm almost positive that's what I'm going to do. The reason for that is because I'm going to take it very slow, and we're going to build a page very slowly, and I'm going to show you how to do certain things and explain it. And in theory, it probably could go to three individual videos. Okay, so let's just get into it. All right. First thing I want you to notice is this is the architecture. This is the layout of what I'm expecting. All right. When you look over here, you'll see that this div, I called it the content div, will be kind of the border. It will create the size of the page that I want, and I'm going to control that with CSS. So this one style, this one div, is going to set the size. It's going to align the whole page the way I want it, and I want it to be centered. Inside that, then I break it down again. If you notice that I have a header div. If you look at this one right here, it's inside the content div, and I call that the header div. And I'm going to put a background image in this, and then inside that we have a menu bar, and inside below the menu bar we're going to have some welcome text. Underneath the whole header, we're going to have a repeating background image. Now, I've already created the image. I already have the image for the header. I will upload those or give them to you in class or put them on Blackboard. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I may actually just do a link to it underneath the video here. But as we go down, you'll notice that we have another div right here. And this div is going to be content. And inside that, we'll have an image and then text. Okay, so this is, and then at the very, very bottom, still inside the content, is going to be another menu bar. And I'll just copy this div and paste it underneath. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. This is our goal, and there might be variations as we work through it. I'm going to clear this out. Okay, so Dreamweaver is open. Now, before we actually start, remember there are certain things that you're going to want to do, especially when you're doing the tutorials along with me. You might not need to do this if you're working by yourself, if you're using the same computer that you used the last time you opened it up. But for our purposes, I'm assuming that you're using a lab computer versus a home computer. So very first thing is go up into Window, Workspace, Standard. Mine's already set, and I'm going to reset standard. Now, you might have to choose standard first and then go back and reset standard. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our site has been defined. Now, I've already defined my site, so I'm not going to do new, but if you haven't defined a site yet, you would go to new. You would locate wherever you're going to store the folder that has all the information in it. And we've already talked about this in class, and I think there was a partial in the video before this one. So I'm going to hit cancel here, and I'll hit cancel here. So make sure that your site is defined. The next thing is we want to create a page. So I'm going to do File, New, and I'm going to create an HTML page. I'm going to give it the title of this is my home page. Now, that's a very simplistic title, and typically we wouldn't call it that, but I just want to put a title in and kind of to remind you that we could put a title here. We don't necessarily have to do it just here. There are other places. But I'm going to hit Create. And now I'm going to go up and save it. File, Save. I'm going to name it Index. index and make sure it's HTML. Make sure that the folder that you're storing your files in is the folder that it's going to be put into. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to create a div. And if you remember from our graphic, there's going to be one large div that's going to hold all of our page. So I'm going to put my cursor over after the body tag here. Here's the body tag, and I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to go up to the menu bar, and I'm going to insert a div. Now I get this dialog box that opens up. I don't have a class to assign, but I'm going to hit OK. And you can see here's my div. Now before we go any further, let's kind of work with styles. Okay, this is a good point for us to kind of figure out our page. Remember, this div right here is going to determine the size of our page. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to CSS Designer. I'm going to bring this down and I want to drop it down. It's a little bit easier when you're working on it a little bit larger. If you can't find it, go up into Window and look for CSS Designer. The first thing I'm going to do, now remember we talked about CSS, and CSS styles can be put in the document itself, or it can be inline, or you can have an external file. And we're going to use the external file. The only real professional way to do it is to have an external CSS file, okay? So I'm going to go to source here, and I'm going to click create a new CSS file. I'm going to browse to where I want to store it. It's in my tutorials, and if I need to, I can drop this down a little bit. You can see here's my index. My images are here. I'm just going to save this as base.css. Now, I don't think you actually have to put the .css. I think it will put that automatically. You can call it anything that you want. I call it base because it tells me that it's like the root. It's the one that I'm going to be basing everything else on. Now, you could call it, style.css. A lot of people do that. There's other names that are kind of a standard, but I call it base. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to link this where it says create new. I'm going to hit, make sure that link, not import, but link is selected, and hit OK. Now if we look up here on our text, you can see in the head of our document, remember the head of the document is the part of the document that only the browser sees. Humans don't see it. This is information just for the browser. You'll see link, the HTML reference is base.css. It's a style sheet and it's text. All right, so all good. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a selector. Now, a selector is a name, okay? So I'm going to click over here to base.css. And you can see this is character set UTF-8, which is international English. And I'm going to click new selector. And I'm going to call this my body content. Now, you have two choices when you create a selector. If you're using a tag, now remember a tag is like an HTML tag. If you're using a tag, you do not put a dot in front of it. If you're creating a unique CSS selector, then you want to make sure that you put a period in front of it. So I'm going to do period content, and I'm doing underscore so I can read it. I can understand what it is that this selector is, and I'm going to call it content div. I'm going to hit enter, and we look up at the code view, and we can see that content div has now been created, and we have those curly brackets. The first thing we need to do when we decide, now remember, this is going to control the width and whether or not it is centered. We could do a background color to it if we wanted to. There's all sorts of things we can do to it. We're going to make it fairly easy so it doesn't get too complicated. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do width. See right here where it says width? Maybe I should go over this first. We have layout, we have text, we have border, and we have background, and then there's more. Okay, so if, for example, say you want to adjust the text, you could come in and click the text and would have the text lined up here. But you'll also notice that you can scroll. So even if you select layout, you can scroll down to text. This is just a little bit quicker. So I'm going to go to layout and I'm going to say width. I'm going to click and I'm going to do pixels. Now remember what I said, that the maximum that a web page should be is 1200 pixels. So I would type 1200 pixels. Now technically that would work for us, but there's other things that we can do as well. I'm going to clear this just for a second. We're going to come back to this, but I can do max width. So if I were to set the max width at 1200, then we can decide, I'm going to put 1200. That means it will never be larger than 1200 pixels. To me, that makes sense. If the browser window of the person who visits the website has theirs set to 900, and we put the actual width at 1200, they won't see the whole thing. So I'm going to set max width to 1200 and I'll hit enter. And if you come over here to the code, we see that max width is 1200 pixels. Let's put the width at 100%. We'll do percent. And I'll do 100. And now we need to center it. When it comes to divs, you really can't just center it. And I'm not sure why. It seems kind of strange, but for some reason, I mean, these people know what they're doing. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but it doesn't quite make sense that there isn't something that we could say centered. What we have to do is click on the margin area and click auto, or not click auto, type in auto. Now what this will do is it will automatically center it. Okay, so let's kind of put this to the side right now. We haven't assigned this CSS to our content. So I'm going to come over to the source code. I can come up here and click this right here. And I'm going to go find wherever it is, go to Window, Properties. Now I'm going to select this div right here. Now if we come down to the Properties window, you'll see it says Class None. Let's put Content Div. That's our only class that we have. So I'm going to put that right there. Now we don't see anything change because our window, if you look here, our window is set to 973. If we were to open this, or say it gets larger, you can see that all of a sudden there's a gap kind of on the left side and there's a gap on the right side. This from here to here is 1200 pixels. Now as we shorten it, it's now 850. If we look up here, you see 850 pixels. We can see the end of the div. So the div is shrinking to the size of the browser window, but it will never go larger than 1200 pixels. I say never will. There are some exceptions where it will, but in general, it will never do that. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to move this out of the way for just a second. And I'm going to click, and actually it's easier if I just use the code window here, the code view. I'm going to highlight this text. I'm going to delete it, and now I'm going to put in another div, and this is going to be a background image. Okay, you know how a lot of headers have backgrounds? Well, that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to do insert div, and I'm going to bring this up and hit OK. Now we can't see the other div, the first one that we did, but we know that it's here. If we look over in the code, you can see that we have div class content div, and then we have another div right here. So what I need to do now is to put a class for this div. So I'm going to select this right here, and I am going to create another style, another selector. It makes sure that the source is the base CSS. The selector, I'm going to hit the plus, and I'm going to call this the background underscore header. Okay, remember it needs a dot in front of it, a period in front. And I will hit enter. Now just to see what's going on, let's go back over here, and you can see that I've created another class right here, background header. I'm going to select the background header in my selectors, make sure that it's selected, because you don't want to come up here and start making changes. So make sure that the background header is selected. We're not going to mess with the width. Well, actually we might, but right now we're not going to. I'm going to choose background. You see where it says background image? It says URL, enter the path. But I can just click this button. And like I said earlier, I've already made my images. So I'm going to click this image and hit open. Over here you see background image, and there's the URL. So I know that's good. In fact, I think I just saw it pop up. It shows this right here. If you look, it's 1200 by 400 pixels. So let's make the width. Let's go over to here. Let's make the width 1200. Actually, let's just make it auto. No, I'm going to do 1200. This might be a mistake, and but I'm going to put 1200. We can always come in and make changes later on. The height is going to be 400. Okay, so because remember when we did this, it said 1200 by 400. Now, let's go down, and what we need to do is to center it, to make sure that it's centered. Okay, so now let me find where to center it. Let me go to background position, instead of percentage. Now, this kind of confused me. I had to stop the video for a second. If you put this in, you can't do what I'm going to tell you to do. You have to click on the percentage itself. So I'm going to click on the percentage, not on the 0 that's here, but on the percentage. Click on it and do center, and go over here, and On the percentage, click center. Now what that's going to do is it's going to make the image always be centered. Now I did a test run of this and it doesn't really look that great, but I wanted you to understand that you can place the background image the way that you want. Now we're going to do some other things in a few minutes with another image that will show you even more things. Okay, so for now I think that this is okay. What I need to do is to assign this class to that div. So I'm going to select this div right here, and I'm going to click background header. Now let me move this out of the way. You can see what's going on here, right? Hopefully you can. Is we want a menu bar. So in order to do a menu bar, we're going to nest another div inside of the background header. So I'm going to delete this right here, this content. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to go up into Insert Div. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to type in some information here. So I'm going to do my normal menu bar, which is home. I'm going to do cap locks, HOME, space, pipe, contact, space, pipe, space, about, space, pipe, space, and privacy. Now these are going to be our links. We're just writing them out right now. We're not going to assign anything to them at this point. It's actually going to take a different style sheet or different class for these. Okay, so if we look up here, we can see that we've created this. What I want to do is I want to tell the text that's inside this div that there's certain things that we want. First, we want it to be a certain color. We want it to be centered. Now we're going to assign other CSS directly to the links themselves, but for right now we need to kind of set up this menu bar, get it to look the way we want it to look. Okay, so this div, I'm going to call this menu bar div. So I'm going to come back over to my CSS designer. I'm going to do a new selector, and remember you need that period in front. I'm going to delete what's there, and I'm going to put menu, let me get rid of the cap locks, menu bar, and I'll do underscore div just to let me know. I'll hit enter, and I'm going to go to first the background. Now actually I'm going to go do layout first. Width, I want it to be auto. Height, now how much height do I want on this? I'm going to do probably like 30 pixels. So I'm going to type in 30 here. Whoops, 30. Hit enter. I'm going to put a background color in. Well, actually, let's go down. And I'm going to, where is it? Font color. I'm going to make kind of white. Now, again, when we get to the actual links, we're going to do a new CSS for this, but these pipes aren't going to be part of the links. So we need to make sure that they are the color that we want them to. So what we're going to do first is we're going to make all the text the same color. But then when we create a link, we're going to have to create a unique style for the links because they're considered different. Okay, font family, I'm going to choose Gill Sans. I'm going to do font weight as bold. Font size, I'm going to do pixels, and I'm going to, I think, make it about 13 or 14. I'll do 14. We'll see what that looks like. Text align, we want it to be centered. We don't need anything so far going this direction. Don't want a border or border radius. Background color, let's go with kind of a gray. Let's make it a little bit darker. Let's make it like this. Okay. And no, we don't need this or this. I think we might want, let me see, max height, minimum. Let's go back to text. There's one that I'm not sure. Let's go vertical alignment. And let's put it middle. Now I sometimes have issues with this. It doesn't really register the way I would expect it to. If it doesn't, we can either delete this or we can modify it again. Right now, it's just, I think this will work the way I want it to. Okay, so now I've created this, and if you want, you can come over and look, and you see all that we've done right here. I think we covered everything. That we might have to go back and put some other things in, but it's not a big deal. I mean, it's very simple to do. But so now let's go over and assign this div to that class. I'm going to go over and do menu bar. And let's see what happens. Doesn't look like it did anything. Okay, there it goes. All right, now you can see that it's a little bit squished. I didn't get the middle, and it could be that this is too narrow. I'm going to actually preview this. So before I preview, I need to save. So I'm going to save, file save. I have to save my CSS as well. File save. And I'll go up into File, Real-Time Preview, Firefox. And if I were to resize this, now I'm thinking, well, no, this is fine. We'll just stick with this for now. There are some things that I'm thinking I would change, but I don't want to get too complicated. We can look at it later on. All right, so we have our menu bar up here. The next thing we need to do is we need to put a graphic underneath. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to put another, oh no, actually I forgot. We need some welcome text. Right in the center here, there's going to be a div that has welcome text in it. So I'm going to go to my source code, and inside the background header, but after the header, the menu bar, I'm sorry, but after the menu bar, here's the menu bar, we want to add another div. So I'm going to hit enter here, and I'm going to insert div, say OK, and you can see some text here. Now, one of the things that you can do if you want lorem ipsum is, we've talked about lorem ipsum in Greek text. There's kind of a cool feature here that we can, if we go into the code, I just found this out today too. It was kind of cool. If I type in lorem, Lorem, and then I put a number after it, the result will be lorem ipsum for the amount of characters that I type in. Like, for example, if I put lorem 25, there'll be 25 characters. So I'm going to put lorem 50. And I hit tab. You got to hit tab too. Now that looks like too much to me, but we'll see. Again, we can always remove it, make changes to it. All right, so now we have the text in here. Let's modify it. We need to go back over to our CSS designer, and I'm going to create a new selector. So I'm going to do welcome message. Again, make sure that that period is in there. I'll say welcome underscore message, and I'll hit enter. Now, before I go any further, one of the things that it might be useful for you is to, before you start making changes to the style that you're creating, the class that you're creating, you might want to assign it ahead of time so that when we make changes, we can see what happens up here. It's like when I was making changes before, I couldn't really see what was happening. So in order to kind of be able to see as I build, I'm going to select the div here, and I'm going to assign it that welcome message. Now, the welcome message doesn't have anything in it right now. We haven't assigned any values to it, but we're going to now. And as we do it, we should see it change up in our design view. Very first thing, since I started with the menu bar with Gil Sans, I'm going to make the Gil Sans, the typeface Gil Sans. You can see it's already changed up here. I'm going to change the color to, I think, white. Maybe not completely white, a little bit gray. And I'm going to make the size, I'm going to put it at percentage, and I'm going to put it at 150. Okay, it's kind of big. I think that there's too much text. But before we remove some of the text, let's resize, make the width of this div, because we don't want it to be all the way across, right? So let's make the width 50%. I selected it, do percent, and I'm going to change it to 50%. Now remember how I talked about how we center it? Go to margin and type in auto. Let's see if that worked. You always got to kind of check. Sometimes you'll have conflicting styles, that one style is telling it to do one thing and then a new style is telling it to do something else. Now I want some space here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give it some padding. I'm going to try percentage with this as well. I'm going to put 15%. Okay, that's too much. Let's go. Now sometimes you might want a number, sometimes you might want percentage. It's up to you. Right now, I think it's just kind of good that you understand that you can make adjustments this way. Okay, I think this looks okay so far, right? You can see that this padding, there's better ways to do this or other ways to do this. for our purposes right now, this is more of uh, a learning thing than it is anything else. Okay, now I'm going to remove some of this text because I think there's too much. I'm going to remove about this. We'll see. Put a period afterwards. Okay, now notice how some of the text is starting to kind of disappear into the background. And I knew that this was going to happen. So there's one of the things that we want to do is I'm going to come into welcome message again. I'm going to go over here. Sorry, I keep moving this out of the way because my camera is blocking it. That's why I keep moving. I'm going to go to background. I think it's background. No, let me go to text. Okay, see what it says, text shadow? I'm going to do 1 pixel and vertical shadow 1 pixel, and the shadow color is going to be black. I'll hit enter, and you can see that it's popping now. Just to see what it looks like, let's go into, we have to save everything. Remember to save. It looks like the source code is saving. Actually, no, it's not. File save, file preview, Firefox, and this is what our page is looking like. Okay, so far so good. I mean, granted, it's very simple. All right, let's close this out, and let's come in here, and let's put some link stuff in here. Now, links are a little bit different. I'm going to show you the easy way to do it when we get further along, not in the next couple videos, but just the basics. I'm going to show you how to configure the links. Okay? The easiest way to do it is we're going to go over to base CSS. Now, because this is a tag, we don't put a period in front of it. I'm going to do A stands for a link. Okay, the A is the link. I'm going to do colon, and I'm going to type in link. I accidentally hit tab. Now I'm going to do the bracket, and all the attributes to the link are going to go in here. So the first one is, if we want to come over here now, see we have a link. We need all the same attributes. I'm going to look over here. I want the color. I'm going to copy this color. So I'm going to go to text. This color right here. No, make sure I'm on a link. I'm going to do color. I don't think I got the hash mark, so I'm going to do the hash, command V, hit enter. Font family is going to be Gill Sans, so I'm going to click over here, look for Gill Sans. If I look over here, font weight is bold. Again, we're just putting the same information in. This is the slow way to do it. Font size is 14. So I'm going to go pixels and type in 14. And is there anything else? No, that's all we need. So I'll hit enter. And now you can see that this is the link, okay? It's got all that information. The same information that we have down here is on the link. Okay, now what I was going to do, and I may have made it confusing, but I was just going to copy this information and do my link and then paste it in. but I figured, you know, better to show you the right way to do it instead of the fast way. But now we're going to do the fast way. I'm going to copy this right here, Command C. I'm going to come underneath here, hit enter. I'm going to do A again. Remember, no dot because this is a tag. Colon. Visited bracket, and I'm going to paste, Command V. Now just to make it a little bit cleaner, I will hit enter so everything's a little bit straightened out. You don't have to do this. It'll work no matter what. Okay, so I'm going to do the next one. The next one is hover. When the cursor goes over the link, we want it to change colors. So I'm going to do A, remember no period, colon, hover, H-O-V-E-R. I'm going to put a bracket in, and it gives me that bracket right there. I'll hit Command V, and I have hover. Now I could make the change right here, but I think I'm going to do the last one, and I'm going to do enter, A, colon. The last one is visited, or not visited, active. And brackets, I'll hit enter, Command V. Now basically what I'm doing is all of these look the same. It doesn't matter if the link is active, if you put your cursor over it, or you visited it in the past. Now it isn't a very good thing to do for accessibility reasons and for user experience. When somebody comes to your website and they say they go to the I don't know, books section, and your book section doesn't look like they've ever been there before. And so they're looking for something specific and they click on books again. It takes them back to the page that they were at. Or say they're in the book section and there's no indication that they're in the book section. If you have the active selected when somebody is on that page, it will change the way the link looks. For our purposes though, I just want to show you doing the hover. That is the best way to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to come over and here's hover right here. And I'm just going to change the color of the text. I'm going to click here and I'm just going to make it darker. Let's do it roughly about like this. We don't want it, I guess we could go black because then it'll be ugly, but it'll be okay. So let's hit enter. All right, let's save this. Now let's go over to the source code and we need to assign the links. Very first thing is we need to put the links in. So I selected the home text. Now you need to do it this way, okay? People run into problems when they select too much. Double click, make sure that it's just on each link that is just the text itself. I'm going to go down to the properties window, make sure that HTML is selected. It should automatically do it. Where it says link, go ahead and click in there and put index.html. We can see here, see where the A is? It says A, href. Now remember we told through CSS what the A style is going to look like. All right, so now I'm going to go to contact. Just the word. Don't select anything other than just the word. Trust me, people have had all sorts of problems. I'm going to do link contact.html, hit enter. Did I miss one? Contact? No, I didn't. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I want to show you another way to do it, but I was running into problems with this. I selected the text and it says you can put the link in. And when I was first kind of playing around, I was having all sorts of problems. And you may get it to work properly, but for now, do it the way I'm doing it. You can try it later on, but every time I did it, it would put the link in and then later the link would disappear. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I was doing something wrong. This is a new feature. This wasn't like this before in other versions of Dreamweaver. So just so that you know that it's there, I don't want you to do it this way to create a link. You could actually type the link in, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. I think the best way is down here. So I'm going to select this, go into link. It's about, so I'm going to go about.html. Remember, whatever you name your pages, no spaces. Enter, and the last one is privacy, and I'm going to put privacy.html. All right, now if we look, we can see there's an underline here. We can also see how the hover works. This is actually pretty good. The other versions of Dreamweaver, you had to actually preview it to see the change. This is kind of nice. Okay, so one of the things I don't like here is that there's an underline on the link itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into CSS, the A link, I'm going to select, I'm going to go to text, and where it says text decoration, I'm going to do none. See how the underlines have gone away now? Now for, say, hover, you could, if we select hover, or let's do, well, we don't have any other pages. Let's just do hover. We'll make that make sure, let's select hover here, and text decoration will go underscore, and now the underline happens when we roll over it. Okay, now I hope that made sense because it's pretty easy. Now the problem with doing it this way is that every link is going to look like this. And that can be a problem later on for, say, regular text. If you have a link in your text and you have a white background, then the link is going to be white. For our purposes, right now, I don't want to get it too complicated, so we're just going to do how you would change the base link system. See where it says a link, a visited, a hover, a active. I just wanted to show you how you would change that. Eventually, I will show you how to do it individually. Okay, so I'm going to move this over, and now we need an image down here. I know it's been a while, but remember that architecture that I had that there was going to be a background image here. So I'm going to go back over to my source code, and before I do anything, I'm just going to save it. I'm also going to save the CSS as well. I've had bad experiences with Dreamweaver crashing, and I've lost everything I've been working on. Hopefully it's not like that anymore. All right, so we have div background. Now we have to make sure that our classes are working. Or, I don't mean working, that we don't put a div in the wrong spot. If I see where this ends, right, I want to come up and make sure that each one of these is ending. Now, the first div right here would be the last closing tag. And since all I have, the next one is background header and everything was inside that background header, I know that my next space is going to be underneath the header. So I'm going to, to make it a little bit clearer in my mind what I'm doing, I give it a little bit, I do a return to give it some space. Now I'm going to go into Insert, Div again. I'm going to hit OK. And before I go any further, I'm going to create my class. So I'm going to do a new one, new selector. I'm going to call this graphic. Now this one needs the period. Remember, the A didn't, this one does. Graphic under header. I'm being descriptive with my titles so that if I ever need to go back, I can kind of get a sense. You'll still get lost because eventually it'll be so complicated that you'll have to search for it, and there's other ways to find it. But the more clear I am, the more concise I am with the naming, the better chance I'm going to have of finding it if I want to make changes later on. So I'm going to hit Enter, graphic under header. Make sure that it's selected. Sometimes if you don't hit Enter, or if you hit Enter, it'll go to something else. But I'm going to assign this div here to that style. So I'm going to select this where it says class. I'm going to do graphic under header. All right. Okay, now I've created the style here. I made a little mistake, so if there's a kind of a lapse in the video, understand I had to back up and redo it. Okay, we can see this. We've assigned the class to the div, and now I want to make some adjustments to some attributes. So I'm going to click on the layout first. The width, I'm going to put at 100%. Why did that? Oh, I know why that. This is the mistake I made before. My cursor was actually over here. I needed to click here. Height is going to be 25 pixels. I already know the size of my image. Now I'm going to go to my background, and I am going to find that image, and you can see that I've named it under header image. I'm going to open it. It always helps if you name your images something that you understand. Now we could mess with these, but there's no real reason. I know it's 25 pixels high. I've told the div that it's going to be 25 pixels high. So now we just need to tell the Dreamweaver to repeat. And we're going to tell it to repeat on the x-axis, left to right. Now if you notice, this is repeat in all directions, top, left, right. It will repeat every direction, or no repeat. We're going to tell it to repeat X. And you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but if we were to go down here and look at this, let's remove this text. I'm going to click here. Oh, no, I just want this gone. Okay, now let's move this out of the way. And you can kind of see now, let's preview it. I'm going to file save. I'm going to go into base, file save. And I'm going to file preview, Firefox. Now you can see this little shadow I put up underneath, We have our links. We have our welcome message. Okay, it's looking the way I want it to look. So I think for right now, I'm going to stop. I think this is going to be the first part of this video.